and finally all of you guys for coming along. So I really hope you enjoy it this evening. And yeah, thank you.
Hear me?
Yes.
All right, I can work with that. Evening. Evening, all. Yeah.
I mean, no introductions needed. Of course, we've just spent an hour 20 looking at a very beautiful, well, it was almost poetic. I liked how it was quite conversational, you know. A lot of documentaries feel like someone sits there and they're Q&A'd or whatever. Whereas it almost felt like we were in conversation with you and the people. So I haven't written any questions. I'm just gonna ask you like an open conversation of everything, if everyone's all right with that, and then we can open up some questions to the audience. How are you all doing? I hope you went for a toilet break now because we're gonna get into it. I mean, on a more light-hearted note, the first thing that strikes me, even just meeting you backstage, looking on this, look back of your life, and these roller coasters of many different things happening. The first thing that I noticed is, considering how much partying that there was done, you're still full of energy and you look amazing, you know. And
it could be a pigment of your imagination.
I mean, I think it's the whole, like, you're very much full of life and everything, just even the quick conversation that we just had backstage is like, your ears are very much still on the ground. You're just talking about, you know, my collective and the things that you're interested in. I think, you know, making music, I've maybe come across people who are and have been like legends in the scene previously, and I think there's almost two ways to see things. There's a way where it's like, oh well, it's all gone and happened and punk rock is dead, and then there's the kind of idea of like, actually it reinvents itself and exists in many different ways. So to see this difference in sort of like mentality, you know, I think what I'm asking here is like, how do you have that shift in mentality where at the end you were kind of like, you know, you've opened it up to sort of like what creates that difference, rather than being like, well, these things can't really exist anymore, and in the time of social media or whatever's happening, the same spaces can't be facilitated.
Damn! That was long. These things can happen again. That's the point. I mean, I hope I said in this thing about punk not being something to look back on, it's something to look forward to. I'm hip to what, you're hip to Lava LaRue, you're hip to the 98 Collective. What you do is a perfect example of those kind of attitudes and that spirit manifesting itself in a different way in the 21st century. Did I say in this thing, I've seen this thing once, because I've watched it once, I can't take it. It makes me feel like I'm dead. Seriously. So I can't remember what I said in it. But, you know, the whole thing about, punk rock being alive and every generation needing its own soundtrack, and got your shit together because the mainstream wasn't doing it for you, threw down some money. That's all DIY, that's all punk aesthetic. So yeah, big privilege. I really should be interviewing this lady, because this is punk rock in the future. I've been doing a few of these things. Everyone keeps getting hung up in 1997 like they've missed something. And I keep trying to explain, you ain't missed anything, you just got to create your own. That's what you guys have done. Respect. More about me. Okay. Well, for instance, the whole punky reggae thing, on the face of it, you know, sonically they're miles apart, but then again, spirit and attitude. We were like-minded rebels. And somehow, I guess we kind of became closer by understanding our differences, not trying to be the same. You know, it was all about having a kind of creative, cultural conversation. Technology, the digital age and the internet. I think those elements, the whole digital thing, has kind of killed a bit of the mystery of the planet, removed some of the pain and the struggle, which I believe is a serious part of the creative process. You know, now that things are so easy, you know, I don't know if it's made art any better. I'd say worse, in fact, because now everybody that can buy this and that thinks they can do it, and they can't. Just because you can afford it doesn't mean you can do it. You need a good idea, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think, as an upcoming artist today, I think the difference between looking at what I saw in this documentary and now is, you know, the way you dressed and expressed yourself, you really had to create that for yourself, whereas now you could go online and buy the whole outfit off a mannequin and look the part. And
you can download it, exactly.
Yeah, you can download it, and it doesn't necessarily mean...
Pockets of people that are using the technologies that's out there to get their voice heard. 98 Collective being a prime example, sister. Seriously.
Thank you. I mean, going on from there, and more importantly, going back to you, I think one thing that's very clear and evident throughout all of this is that you're a curator. You know, because the way that you curate and are able to see these movements, you know...
No, let me tell you something. Let me get this all straight, this fucking curator bullshit. All I've been doing is doing my team. You know what I mean? Going towards things that turn me on and earn me across and buzz me. And with hindsight, it seems that the things that I've done have connected with X amount of people, but ultimately I was doing my thing. I don't really get, you know, I'm not a historian, I'm not you know, any of that stuff, a curator, I'm just doing my thing. And through this film and the book, I had a book out last year, There in Black Again, I've realized that for better or worse, what I've done seems to have connected with X amount of people. Desire to be young, but it keeps me in touch with contemporary themes. I think people forget music can do that. It can be a tool for social change. Going back to you again, see? You know, the lyrics. I love the way you kind of put, what you do is like music for your mind and your feet. You know, you're not like on a soapbox shouting at anybody. It's, you know, it's all about the way you tell it, and you tell it good, sister. And the rest of your crew.
Thank you, thank you. We got one of them in the audience today.
No, you know what's funny is, sorry to interrupt you. I've been doing a bunch of these things, right? And normally the curator's like somebody much older. So I've been in there bitching about young people. And I'll be like, fuck them, you know, I got a bunch of kids, man. But it's good to, you know, have somebody that's an example of, because I tell people I'm optimistic. The youth will find a way and they'll get it together. There's another thing that's come out through this project is they said I've got to engage with the young, which I think is really condescending. I think the young will work it out, you know what I mean? And, you know, if I do cool shit, the young will engage with me, but to do it as a premeditated act is ridiculous, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think you're helpless. You'll work it out. The smart ones will.
I mean,
You all got to find out for yourself, and that's what makes progress so slow. But as long as we're going in the right direction, forward, it's all right.
it's very beautiful. I was quite philosophical. Going on a more philosophical level as well.
Don't go there. I'm joking. Go on.
Sorry if this has been a trip already, but
Go on.
I'm about to get deeper in. Is that I think the way that I see life and my values, and something that again this documentary reinforces, that, you know, and whether you're spiritual or not, this is what I believe in, is that I believe that you live many lives within your life, you know, and, you know, I think that I believe that even the human body scientifically every 7 years, like your body sort of like regenerates, and it's very interesting seeing, you know, someone like yourself have these many career paths, and they don't feel like you know, counteractive of each other. In fact, it seems quite evident that everything that you did informed each other. Because I think
it's a oneness to me. I
yeah.
don't see them. I mean, journalists separate them and put them in these little compartments, but for me, it's just all of a continuous thing. Even the fact, you know, I make films, I DJ with a band, it's just a one thing to me, and it's all driven by music, I have to say.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been easy, man. I'm just open to what I like. I mean, that's why Ariat called me the Rebel Dread, because I wasn't like the other brothers, didn't want to be defined by my colour, you know, and that's why I stopped calling myself punk, stopped calling myself Rasta, because I didn't like labels, you know, and yeah, just wanted to remain open.
Isn't it funny though that you just simply existing and doing your thing and just going with the flow is seen as so radical though?
You know what I was thinking about? I was like, what the fuck? Why are people making such a fuss? What is it? I don't get it. And I think I've come to understand, like, you've got a collective, right? You've got a bunch of people. Well, when I was growing up, no collective, no cultural backup, it was just me one. You know what I mean? And it wasn't a premeditated thing. I just didn't want to be part of a herd. And I've come to understand that maybe it's the essence of that people have picked up on, the fact that I didn't need to be blessed by society or my mates. I had the confidence from, I don't know where I got it from, to just be me.
Here right now, you're full of energy and you're, you know, very much, you know, aware of what's happening in the world and what you do with Six Music and everything. I think that...
Although living in London and having teenage kids drives that as well. It's fucking expensive, isn't it? I mean, really. I mean, half of my drive is just trying to stay alive. But it keeps me creative, and that's what gets me out of bed.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple other questions that spring to mind now that when you speak. The first one as well that I was thinking when you were just talking there, I'm looking up there because I'm trying to remember what I just watched, almost like photographic memory, is there was so much footage that we saw that you had filmed. And what was really incredible was seeing you talk about very specific situations, or seeing them talk about very specific situations. And there was actual, you know, Super 8 footage that you had filmed that almost, you know, described that scene. And I was like, that's either a crazy coincidence that in the moment they spoke about that, there was like the perfect imagery you'd filmed, or...
However, it's called editing.
Yeah. but here's the question. How much footage did you have to go through, and how hands-on were you for those moments as well, stitching that footage together for those specific moments? Do you know what I mean? How hands-on were you with going through an archive?
With this film?
Of all
I did was I gave the guy, the editor, William Basley, you should remember his name, I gave him all my archive and said, do with it what you will. And that's what he did. I mean,
Were you nervous that he'd come across weird things?
It's funny you should say that. It's funny you should say that. I didn't even go there. But there's some...
Okay, let me know.
That'll be the side.
Yeah.
But, no, I just, you know, I had to stand back and let him do his thing, which was very difficult for me, I've got to say. And there are some things that he missed. I mean, you know, the whole punky reggae thing, you know, he kind of reinforces the idea there was 1977 Don Lex, you know, behind the decks. It's not really true, man. You know, a lot of white kids were hip to reggae before I came along. In fact, here's a funny one. So everyone goes on about the punky reggae thing starting in the Roxy, 1977, me DJing at this club. 2 years before that, right, I'm in my shop, Acme Attractions, that's all in the film, right? Anyway, I'm in the shop, I used to play hardcore dub reggae in the shop. One day, Patti Smith comes in. She's heard the bass lines, and she loved reggae. And we strike up a conversation, and she mentions her favourite artist is a dude called Tapazuki. You all hip to Tapazuki? Reggae artist, MC, right? And I said, well, he's a friend of mine. And she said, well, I'm playing Hammersmith Odeon tonight. Bring him along. Cut to Hammersmith Odeon that night, sell-out gig, 3,500 people, me and Tapazuki standing in the wings, watching Patti Smith do her thing. All of a sudden, Patti grabs Tapazuki, pulls him on stage, and puts a guitar in his hand. He can't play guitar. He's a white man. He looks at me in sheer horror, right? Like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I signal him, air guitar. So Tapa he breaks into his best Jamaican air guitar moves. I'm killing myself with laughter in the wings. All of a sudden, Patti grabs me, pulls me on stage, and guess what she does? Puts a goddamn mic in my hand. Hello, you know, There ain't no such thing as air microphone. And his air guitar. I look on the floor and Pappy's writhing on the floor. I look at the crowd and they're going ape shit. And I maintain that that was the birth of the funky reggae party.
I find the interview thing just shocking. You know, where they turned you away and said, "No, you're black, we can't have you on." So here's the thing. So were they apologetic? Did they make excuses? And here's the thing. Afterwards, have you had anything like that afterwards? Has anyone else been absolutely clear that they're prepared to state their racism out front?
Dude, I've grown up in England in the 50s, 60s and 70s. I live with that shit.
No, since then. As a professional.
I guess since since MTV started making money from Yo MTV raps, they wouldn't have that conversation.
Right.
But you got to understand, I wasn't making a joke there, you know, growing up in this country, like you've got this thing about cancel. And I feel like they've been trying to cancel me my whole life. And what's sad about that is that it becomes the norm. You just can't live with that shit. You know what I mean? And I do occasionally wonder who I'd be if I wasn't treated like that. If you all had been nice to me when I was a youth. You know, maybe I wouldn't have to get my shit together and be the cocky motherfucker I am today. So in a way, not you exactly, but it's your fault that I am, no really, dig it. You know, it's because I had to stand my ground and get my comments, it's because of the way I was being treated. So all that negativity I turned into a positive thing, making me John Letts. You see, I don't like people taking pictures because I'm on DJ and smoking sometimes or whatever. People take a picture, I'm like, don't do that, I'll lose my job. But it's true, I didn't give a fuck. But I had to be honest in this film. I mean, it's the least that I could do for the directors. One thing I could do is be honest, which was bloody difficult. I've got to tell you, I spent my whole life being superficial about the deep and deep about the superficial. So this thing was really painful. And yeah, I needed to smoke the spliff during the 3 hours it took. But it ain't for everyone. And all of them say, you know what, we're all pulling it together like that. But because the business has got this divide and rule thing and some people want to be part of that, it's never going to happen. It's all about new values. The minute you say fuck off, you know, the world becomes exciting, but if you want that, you're screwed, you know. Pandemic. Especially if you don't want to make films about shit. You know, again, that thing about justifying the space you occupy. If I put something out there, it's got to take things forward, you know.
Yeah. And that other one was, what made you decide to manage the Slits? Like, how did that come about?
You said that, manage the Slits. I did not manage the Slits. I tried to manage the Slits. And if you know what they're about, you'll totally understand. But more interesting here, this thing over the internet, they repeat things over the years and they drop a few words, they drop tried and then manage, and all of a sudden I'm a Slits manager. So triple check everything, like the whole Don Letts is Bob Marley's friend. Bollocks. I used to sell the brother weed and I was one of many acquaintances that he knew. You know what I mean? So yeah, don't believe everything you read. Focus on the idea and the essence of the idea that you're trying to get across. And the advice I've been giving young people generally is something I saw in a Western. As a young kid, I was like 10 or 12. And there's a young gunslinger and an old gunslinger. And the young gunslinger says to the old gunslinger, you know, how do I become number one? And the old gunslinger says, draw fast, shoot straight, and don't hit the bystanders. Which I interpret as, choose your goal, go for it, and don't be a dick along the way. Kind of what I said at the end of this film. But I recognise that when I was like 10, 12 years old. You know, and that's the advice I give you. Choose your goal, go for it, and yeah, try and not to be a dick about it.
Blacker better than gold.
Oh, that's cold. Oh, I'm going to be honest, started off well and nosedived. Boom. Boom.
Why?
I don't know. Ask Idris. He maybe spread himself too thin. The brother's all over the place. Not another brother, but no, it started off like, wow, Western reggae soundtrack. And you sort of set out for this thing. And then for me, you've got to say, because a lot of people, you know, you do all right. But for me, it kind of nosedived. It didn't fulfill what it suggested in the very opening, you know.
I think it was a good thing that a lot of the characters it wasn't their story, but actual real life.
Based on real life stories, yeah.
Real life characters.
That's right, and people wanted to be interested, followed up those things, they'd realise that, yeah, there was a whole black western thing going on, yeah. Absolutely, for that, it's good, yeah.
It's a shame that you, that was a bit you left out in the documentary actually, that you love westerns when you were younger.
I haven't seen the film, yeah. But that's all we had. You know, that thing about westerns, the redemption, just good and bad, black and white, you know what I mean, appeal to, especially in Jamaica, man. Westerns and kung fu movies, that was the link.
And the soundtrack?
Yeah, Wicked, that's what I'm saying, yeah, that was Wicked. It was a weird juxtaposition to see reggae soundtracks against the Western backdrop. That's why I was so excited. But then I guess the thing about the content, like the premise was great, but the actual story I don't think was strong enough, didn't leave any resonance with me. But, you know, but I've turned what people would see as, again, a negativity into creative positive, and that's the way I operate, you know? I mean, that's the only revelation I've got out from this book and this film and doing all this stuff. Like, yeah, not well adjusted, but you know what? It's me. And I'm good with that. I'm so good with it.
I think that's all we've got time for, apparently. So give them